Welcome to the Messy Medium podcast. I'm your host, the Messy Medium herself, Tara Cecilia. I'm a tea connoisseur, intuitive psychic medium, and a lifestyle and business coach for individuals looking to create their most luxe legacies. I'm here to spill the tea on life, death, legacy, and everything in between. In this podcast, we're not afraid to get a little messy. Hey, blessed babes. Today's guest is Kate Varness, a certified coach and human design specialist. She helps women go from exhausted by their businesses and life to living with a sense of peace that they know, accept, trust, and express who they truly are. She's a multi-book author, ADHD expert, international speaker, lover of binge learning, time travel shows, and oracle decks. Kate lives a couple hours south of Chicago with her husband, kids, and chief operating dog, Mickey. Kate was kind enough to provide us with a free guide. Align your energy using the human design download found below. Hi, welcome to the Messy Medium podcast. It's Tara, and today I am joined by Kate Varness, and I am just so excited. This was a requested podcast for you all. Human design, I know just about nothing, and she is our wonderful expert who is going to explain as much as she can in an hour. So, hi, Kate. Welcome.
Hello. I'm so glad to be here.
Again, thank you so much. So, in true Messy Medium fashion, we got to start with our question of the week, which is, what is your current favorite manifestation method or practice?
I love this question because I have done a fair bit of learning about manifestation and experimented with different things. And what I've come to know for sure is that manifesting is directly linked to alignment, meaning that you can't will something to happen with your mind. I mean, I've created the vision boards. I'm sure you have too, with that dream car or whatever, or having the mantras like, I'm happy, wealthy, and healthy. But that's not alone going to create the manifestation. It's not going to create the result unless the alignment is there. And right. So I think of it like a toaster, let's say you're at a toaster and you're pushing down the bagel and you want it to get toasted and you're waiting and waiting and waiting. And then you check it and you're waiting more. And then unless you notice that your toaster's not plugged in, then you're going to be stuck in that cycle of waiting and being frustrated. So the plugging in the toaster is plugging into your alignment. And what I love about human design is that it allows you to do that. It really gets you connected into the right place so that you're then trusting that what is right for you is coming at the right time, and really being in that powerful, expansive space instead of in kind of a wanting and chasing sort of energy.
I love that because alignment it's there. It's so crucial for manifestation. And I've said it before in the past. That's like when right now I'm very much into listening to a song and just envisioning a life where, within the music, But what I got to was all right, I need to think of everything that leads up to these moments that I'm manifesting in my mind. And that is where alignment is the heavy hitter when it comes for the actual manifestation to take place. I love that.
So can I just say one thing about alignment? Because I think it's it's a term that we see all over the place, and it can feel like it doesn't mean anything, like, oh, you're going to magically end up in this cosmic valley of unicorns and rainbows. But it's really much more of a process, and that human design lets you sort of look under the hood of your process, your unique process. And so it makes it more concrete than just this concept of, am I aligned or not?
Yeah, it makes it, I don't want to say more tangible, but I guess tangible in your mind. Because then you can kind of start to put together what are the actual steps I need to take to get to where I want to go. Because the wanting is great. I don't want to be not, shitting on wanting things. It's great to want things and it's awesome, but it's okay, so what are we gonna do to
get there, you know, and it can be uncomfortable, you
Mm-hmm.
know, I think that's like what stops people a lot too, is like, I gotta like step out of my comfort zone to like get what I want. It's like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, not sorry. Now, human design. We're just gonna start with like the most basic question that I could ask you with this. What is human design, and like what is its purpose?
So, human design is combines ancient and modern wisdom. It combines the astrology, of course, the I Ching, Kabbalah, the Hindu Brahmin chakra system, as well as quantum physics, and it gathers all those things into one system that's a new system that allows you to see how you're different, and that means you can make decisions as yourself.
Yeah. When we did my chart reading, ever since then, I've literally been thinking about how you said about not fitting into like a fixed schedule. And that was like about like a week or so ago. And like ever since that conversation, I've just been like letting myself work. Like I know what I need to accomplish, but working outside of the fixed schedule. And I really, even just that one thing from the session, I feel like I unlocked like a level of productivity that I didn't have before, because I was trying to force myself to be someone that I'm not.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just so fascinating. So within that, how can someone better understand their human design type and then utilize that to like change themselves further for the better?
Right. Good question. And I would say that human design, it isn't so much about changing who you are, it's about seeing how you're different. So the example you just said about seeing that,
Interesting.
you get to go with the flow, and that you can trust
Yeah.
that it's okay for you to go with the flow, and you'll be productive because so
Yeah.
that's one part of it, is to see how you're different, how you're unique, and that's
Mm-hmm.
seen in your design. It gives you that amazing permission to not feel guilty about acting in a certain way, right? Because it fits for you.
Right.
The other piece of it is that you can see how you've been conditioned. So I like to think of conditioning like you're wearing a bunch of coats, and one
Mm-hmm.
of those coats in your example is thinking that the only way to be productive is to set this schedule and to be able to check things off a list, and that it's impossible for you to just trust that you have a sense of what it is that needs to be done. Now, checklist may be part of that, right? I'm not
Right.
dissing on any particular method here. It's just what's right for you, what feels natural for you.
Mm-hmm.
And when you take away all that energy that's being used in trying to be something that you're not, you get to take
Yeah.
off the coat. You get to like be able to move around. So it's really saying like, well, who said I had to do this way?
Yeah. We talked about that, like the who says, and then the why not me. I feel like that is for my, at least for my, I'm sure it comes up in other charts, but like I was like, yeah, why not me? Like, why not? You know, I loved that because it's like one of the many like mind blown like realization moments. I also want to talk. I know this is like an off like tangent. Design. Can we just like talk about that a little bit more?
Sure.
Because I feel like for me that was like such it was a big moment. Like I was like, wow.
Okay, so in order to get your human design, and you can find your human design free online at jovianarchive.com and download it, and you can see. So get your human design. First of all, you're going to see this chart that has lots of different numbers and colors and things written on it. And you may look at the chart and be like, oh my gosh, wow, this is so cool. Or you may be like, oh my gosh, this is so much. What is this? This is this strange thing. I don't know what I'm looking at and how to interpret it. So if you're someone who is just getting your human design, or you're new to this, or maybe even if you've been on the pathway, the thing that you should know is that you don't have to be overwhelmed by what you're looking at. The pathway into living your design and really getting the most out of it, like having it be a shortcut to the success that you want, is to look at your type. And in human design, there are 5 basic types. There's the manifester, the the projector, the generator, the manifesting generator, which is really a generator type at its core, but it has some different flavor to it, and the reflector. And so you're going to see one of those 5 different types showing up in the description. And so then that tells you, okay, what's your strategy for life? And then, so it's going to tell you a different way to live and act in life that may be pretty counterintuitive to what you've been doing currently. And then you'll also see that your authority. So type, strategy, and authority. When you actually start to live out the information, understand what that means, and start to live it out, experiment with it, that's when the real good stuff gets to happen. And that's when you can become in alignment and see all the places where you've just automatically taken on things that aren't yours.
And you utilize this in your coaching?
Yes, absolutely. And I can say without a shadow of a doubt that every coaching client, whether they're doing one session with me or whether they're doing Epiphany, which is my 3-month coaching container, that the very first thing that they say is, oh my gosh, I feel so validated. Like there was something deep inside that I was suspecting, and like it's here. So I get the permission to do it this way and not feel guilty and not be forcing myself, which is often what we're doing. We're forcing, we're pushing, we're trying to make something happen. We're trying to be certain and figure it out, right? And it creates all this confusion and doubt, and then we get stuck, right?
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I mean, we only talked for like 45 minutes. I was like, oh my gosh, this is like it. Like, this is the hack. Like, I don't want to say hack, but like, it's all right there. You know, we did like birthday and where we were born, where I was born, and I was like validated, and then felt like, oh my gosh, here is the path that like in like fleeting thought, I've been like, I don't think I actually work like this, but to actually see it like laid out and have somebody else say, like, no, actually, like, this is how you're meant to thrive and align. It's like, wow, 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 wow. Now, we talked about like that getting stuck and like a pushback. And that I know that has to do with like the feelings of anger and peace internally that represent our alignment within our human design functionality. Can you like speak more about that?
Sure. I mean, I could talk about each one of the types. Would that be useful?
Yeah, I think
okay, so I'm going to start with the manifestor types, and they're about 8% of the population, so not a ton out there, but they have an aura that is closed and repelling. Okay, that sounds pretty awful, doesn't it? To be closed and repelling. Well, what that means, so so sorry if you're a manifestor out there, don't get worried about this.
Don't take it personally.
You probably have noticed that people will have these reactions to you, and you're like, what's going on? I just want to do the thing I want to do. And so the energetic mechanism of a manifestor is that they get inspired. There's a nonverbal creative process where they have an idea or inspiration to do something, and they want to just go off and be able to do it without asking permission. So manifestor children, like, they're the ones who went out into the woods and they didn't tell their parents that they were gone, and their parents were like, you're so selfish, why didn't you let anyone else know? And so what happens for manifestors is that they feel a deep sense of anger because they can't just do the thing that they want to do. Like, why should they have to ask someone's permission? That's ridiculous. They're independent. They know what they want. And so this is one of the things that show up for a manifestor. And we're talking here about the not self keyword, which is anger. And so there's a mental concept of I'm angry, right? But there's a felt concept of it too. And so one thing you can do if you're a manifester is just to notice, am I feeling angry? And notice where that is in your body, because our body is such a great key to understanding what it is that is going on. So what's the relief for this? What's the alternate? Well, manifestors are aligned when they feel a sense of peace. And the peace is specifically that they're able to go to be able to move through their nonverbal creative process and do things without being interrupted. And that only happens if they reduce the resistance, which is their strategy, which is to inform, to let others know. Okay, just to let you know, this weekend I'll be working on this big project that I've got. And, if you see a red piece of cardstock on the door, just leave me alone, right? Having people know ahead of time is going to reduce that feeling that they're repelling, because the other people are like, this person, they just act, they don't tell. And so I got to be a little uneasy around them.
This reminds me of someone. Obviously, I'm not going to out them right now so much, but after this, I am looking up their human design because I'm like, this sounds so much like somebody who I'm close to. I'm like, oh my goodness.
So the process for the manifester is to discover this aspect about themselves and realize that it actually reduces their anger and brings them peace by eliminating resistance through their strategy, which is to inform. So that's just an example of how the type information can all fit together for a manifester. So let's talk about projectors next. And if you want to talk about one of the most conditioned types out there, it is projectors, and they're only about 20% of the population, and they have a lot of openness in their chart. They're here to guide us, and they're not here to work a ton. So they don't have an energy within them that's sustainable, that's always going to be there. So that's why they're the ones who are consulting. Let's say they're consulting in a business to how they can be more efficient, or they're in a role ideally where they're giving others advice because they can see what's wrong. They can look at someone and be like, oh, you just need to do X, Y, and Z. But the thing about projectors is that if they jump into giving that information, that guidance, without getting the permission or being invited to do it, it's not going to turn out well, right? The person's not going to receive the information, and the projector who's giving it is going to feel like, why don't they see me? They're going to feel bitter. And that's the not self indicator for them, is this feeling bitterness. So if you're a projector, think about, what are the times when you don't feel like you're recognized or acknowledged or heard or seen? Why is it so easy for everyone else to, get their business started, and it's so hard for me? Like, that's bitterness, right? So again, what's the felt sense of that? When are you feeling that bitterness? Where are you feeling it in your body? What is it here to tell you? If you can tune in, not with your mind to the concept of what's justice or not, but to your body, that your body is going to carry a message about that not being acknowledged. And so the other side of that for projectors to know they're on track is when they feel successful. And oftentimes it's because they were able to help someone out. They were able to direct someone to the steps that they needed to, have what they want, because they can see it.
Yeah.
But it only works if you were invited. And so that's the strategy, is to wait for the invitation. And that's like, what is that? How do you do that? And that's where the process of this comes in, where you're discovering, how do you wait for the invitation rather than just jump in and say what's clear to you? Yeah. Right. So often projectors get burned out, like by 35, they're burned out. They may go through cycles of burnout because they don't know when enough is enough. They're trying to prove that they're worthy by working. And it's just not how they're designed.
Working, yeah.
So the So generators, right? So now we're moving into your territory here.
Yes, getting
Yes,
closer.
generators, manifesting generators. I'm going to talk about them together here. And they're here to build when they're in alignment, when they are using their energy for the things that they really are supposed to. Um, some amazing things can be accomplished. And so for generators, if you get to the end of the day and you're like, oh, I feel so satisfied. I did a lot today, but I feel really good about it. It's that good work,
Mm-hmm.
good love, so good relationships, and the satisfaction. That's
Yeah.
the key word to know you're on track. And the keyword to know you're off track is frustration. Can you? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm a manifesting generator. So like
100%.
frustrated.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I can get frustrated. And so when you're noticing that, because probably a lot of the people hearing this are generators, because it's just a big percentage. When you're feeling frustrated, I want you to stop and notice how things are set up. Have you been um, have you been creating expectations for yourself that really aren't going to allow you to be successful? Right? Why are you frustrated?
Right.
Sometimes the frustration is there to bump you up into a new level of self-expression.
Right.
So the strategy for generator types is, and that includes manifesting generators, is to wait to respond. And
Mm.
I mean, who wants to be patient? Nobody,
No one.
right?
No one.
Nobody. And we're taught, like, the conditioning is, well, if I wait, I'm going to miss out on the opportunities, right?
Right.
Like, just
Yeah.
do it. Um,
Literally, Nike.
yeah,
Just do it.
exactly.
Like,
So
branded to
it
us.
is so prevalent in the culture that if you wait, you're going to miss out. That if you're not making it happen, if you're not being a go-getter, then it's not going to turn out. And so again, that's where the process is. That's where it can be really useful to be in a one-on-one coaching container where you're like, where somebody's with you and saying, okay, I know this feels really counterintuitive, but let's just try it out, right? Let's just see
Yeah.
what happens if. Now, it doesn't mean you're doing nothing in these examples where you're waiting. You're still like lit up by the things that make you happy. You're talking about it. You're just not trying to force something to happen and figure it out with
Yeah.
your mind.
Yeah. That I obviously relate like 100% to that because I'm a manifesting generator.
Right. And especially
Yeah.
manifesting generators. Now, the flavor, let me just tell you a bit of a difference. Of manifesting generators have such like vibrant energy. Others might think it's chaotic, and
Oh
it
yeah.
can be,
I think
right?
it's chaotic.
Because there's a lot of different interests, and that's okay. It's okay to have a
Yeah.
lot of different interests. It's just that you need to um, understand that that sort of need for stimulation is going to influence how you're moving through life, because you can be busy, 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 and it can amount to nothing, and then you're tired and
Nothing. Yeah.
frustrated. Um,
That was me into like my mid 20s. So,
yeah, right.
yes.
And so what
Yeah.
changed for you?
You know, I was kind of forced to slow down because I was in a car accident. So, after that point, like when I was like made to wait, you know, which is like we just said, is like not what we want to do, but it's like what we have to do. After that, I was like, oh, and I had like burnt out. I was like, wow, like I cannot sustain like this lifestyle. Um, and I definitely think also like getting older. I mean, I'm not that old, old, but like I'm definitely recognizing like just because I'm not because I like to build. I want to build businesses. Just because I'm not like putting the sign up on my like metaphorical like building, I'm still mixing cement. I'm still putting cement on the next block that I'm going to put here. And that's all going to amount to something. Just because it looks like a work site right now doesn't mean it's not going to be great. But you got to mix the cement basically.
Mm-hmm. Right.
It's the force to slow down.
Yeah. And that happened to me as well. Just this past summer, my adult son had a traumatic brain injury. He was in the hospital for 2 weeks, and we didn't know how it was going to turn out. And my nervous system went into fight or flight. I mean, I was really unable. It's like you're saying, forced, meaning you're unable to push through. Because this pushing through business, this is like ding ding, this is a sign that you're not aligned because you're pushing through. It doesn't have to be hard. So I did what I hadn't been giving myself permission to do all along, which is to take a break and then to take another break. So I took a break and I got my nervous system regulated. And then I took a break from output and I said, it's okay. I don't need to know the answer right now, because that's how I'm designed, is to like have this conditioning that I have to know the answer. I was like, it's okay. I don't have to have the answer for how long this is going to take. I mean, what a leap of faith, right?
Right.
But if I had pushed through at that point, nothing good would have followed. So it's like the toaster not being plugged in. my bagel wouldn't have been, got nicely toasted.
Never got toasted.
And I would have been frustrated. But instead, I just entered this space of an in-between space, a liminal space, and allowed myself to respond to what gave me satisfaction, what was frustrating in the moment. So no big unrolling of a plan. And what happened is that I had a sense of it was time to move out of that. And opportunities came in. I got 3 requests for speaking, and I had 2 clients come in. And so it worked out. And going through the experience of trusting and then having it work out, that's the right timing, all of that stuff. It showed me that in a whole new level, it showed me that I can trust that it'll be okay. And I never would have gotten to that point if I didn't have the mechanics information, the looking under the hood that was in my human design.
That's why, even if someone doesn't put everything into human design, I definitely, just even based on my, limited experience that I've had thus far, because I'm going to continue to explore this, but, just having another tool, it's so helpful, because sometimes it'll make sense for the situation and sometimes it won't, because you will have to look at another thing. But just to have even a little bit of a reference, it really it propels you. It makes you feel, either propels you to continue your resting, or propels you forward. Additionally, I hope your son is okay, because I had a TBI after my car accident, so I feel for him. Is not easy at all.
Yeah, he's doing, it's kind of amazing how well he's doing. Again, he was in a place that he had no control of it. And the truth is that we don't have control over what's happening in our lives. And if we walked around worried about that, what might happen, that's not healthy either. And so having a sense of who you are that you can, then take with you. No one can take away the knowledge that you get from human design or other systems. You keep that and you carry it with you. And so I just realized I haven't talked about reflectors. Very different. Can we just, I'm going to touch in about them.
Yeah.
So reflectors are very unusual. There's 1% or less. And in their charts, they have all white centers. And I'm using language. It's okay. You don't need to know it if you don't know it. And they're very, very different. They're here to kind of gauge the health of the community. So they're absorbing, they're noticing all these things about others, the system, all of this, and they're able to reflect that back. There's kind of a sampling aura for them. Their keynote, not self, is disappointment. In that they can see the potential of others and then be terribly disappointed by, others when they're not acting well, or when there's world events that happen and you're like, how
Yeah.
can humanity be this way? And then the other side of that is, I'm totally blanking out on it now. I can't believe it. Surprise.
Yes, I remember I read
Yeah.
that.
So
Yeah.
it's like surprise, meaning like a child being delighted that, like, look at the beauty of the world. Look at the wonderful connection here. And so it's, for them, really, it's important that they're with the right people and living in the right place, in order for them to
Wow.
have a good life. Their strategy is to wait a full cycle of the moon in order to make a decision. So it's
Wow.
a different kind of setup.
Have you ever had one come
Yes, yeah,
across?
yeah, yeah. hmm I've
Oh, 'cause I was like 1%.
interacted
I was
with.
like, oh
I
my
mean,
god.
1% of the world's population still is like a lot of people.
That's true.
So,
It's
but
smaller than the
but still,
rest.
yeah. Most of the people who I'm yeah, who are clients are projectors or generators. Now, projectors, I forgot to say, they have a focused and penetrating aura, meaning that if you're with someone who's a projector, you're going to feel really seen, or they're lasered into. Um, and that's part of their magic, is that they are here to be wise about others. Generators have an open and enveloping aura, and so they're kind of like, come on in, let's hang out. And so they're going to
Yeah.
naturally draw people to them. But then it's important that they're checking in with themselves, like, is this person the right person to hang out with? Is this opportunity the right
Right.
one? Um, so anyway, I've given there's an overview of those different keywords. Again, it's the type, the strategy, and the authority that are your first steps, even though, especially manifesting generators, we want to go down all the little rabbit holes and see what this gate means and what this thing is and all of that. And that's okay too.
Yeah.
But um, just to focus you in.
Yeah. I was like, don't go too far down the rabbit hole too fast. I was like really trying to pace myself. I'm like, woo, because it's just so
It really
fascinating.
is. Who doesn't want to learn
It
about
really,
themselves, right?
yes. And what I like love so much, it combines so many different, I don't even know what the word to, like, different, like the astrology and like Kabbalah, like this and that, and the quantum, and I'm just like, wow. But it just like puts things that feel like sometimes we don't have, like, I don't want to say the ability to read or like the language to, like, feels like you're trying to decipher. And like human design just like simplifies it enough to make it like digestible, and is like a gateway into these other, exploring these other modalities. It's just like, I love that. That's like one of like the side things. I'm just like, this is just so great. So we kind of talked about it, but like, what like steps do you recommend for someone who's kind of trying to like lean in or follow that inner knowing, or like how can they recognize that, um like more nuanced?
Okay. So the the always being curious. So being a curious observer.
Mm-hmm.
This is the skill set that you need to cultivate in order to make any shift in your life. Now I'm a certified coach, so I've got a background in coaching. Also, and have a background in energy practitioner. So the what our culture tells us is that our mind rules. Our mind is going to figure out the answers. And so what I'm suggesting that someone who wants to lean into this, that they do, is to lean into what your body is telling you. And so
Yeah.
getting to be good at being present to your body, to what your body's feeling, becoming curious about, oh, I'm feeling really anxious now. And let's say that have a center that's open, you know, that the splenic center, if you've got that in white, that means it's open and absorbing and amplifying everyone else's anxiety. And you're like, why am I feeling so off right now? When you slow down, you've
Right.
got that curious observer, you're saying, is this mine? Is this something else? Maybe you've been watching the news or following a conflict that's going on right now, and you're just,
Right.
your nervous system isn't attuned to that. There are things that you can do to just give yourself a break, to be in your own energy. So
Yeah.
if you're just cycling through and thinking this anxiety is mine and I got to do something about it and blah, 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 then you're only going to get more of that. So
Right.
create a little pause by observing, and then make the pause bigger and bigger and bigger. And then pretty soon you'll be able to make different choices. You'll have that awareness. This isn't mine. This was just, I was with
Yeah.
this person and they're like always talking about the bad things happening in the world, that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So
Yeah.
does that make sense?
That
So it's not just tuning into
that makes so
yourself,
much
but it's like
sense.
noticing what's happening in your body, those signals, those felt sense emotions, for, like I mentioned, for each of the types, and then being like curious, what's going on now? Um,
Yeah.
you don't necessarily have to react to that trigger, but you've got to notice the trigger before you can have a different
You
response.
right. Right. And that takes time. It's not going to be like an immediate thing.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's like, I definitely, when we talked about that during my session, I was like, yeah, because you're like, you're open, like, you're so open. And I was like, as you went on to explain, I was like, that makes so much sense because I definitely absorb like hyper like awareness of like what people are feeling and then like the broader like what's going on in the world. And it's like I'm not gonna end any wars. Like but I can change how I'm what I'm allowing in and like how I filter it and what I allow to affect me. And like I've definitely been using like the analogy of like the reflecting back like during my sessions now because I think that I was just taking on too much like with clients in terms of like their like it wasn't getting like filtered out. It was like I was just holding on to the worry or like things that they were coming to me concerned with. And I was like, after our session, I kind of realized I'm like, okay, so this is why this is happening. So that helped. And then this is like the steps to like move on without carrying my stuff and everybody else's as well. And I'm sure you go into that more in your coaching
Mm-hmm.
with your
Yeah, but so here's the thing, that the person who downloaded this system and created it all together, his name was Ra
yeah
Uru Hu. That wasn't his original name, but that's what he changed it to after he had this big download about 35 years ago. And he's has this joke that half the world's population have defined solar plexus. So that means that if you're looking at the body graph, which is the picture with the shapes in the middle, there's something on if you're looking at it, the lower right, that's a triangle down at the bottom. That's the emotional solar plexus. And so about half the people in the world have that defined, which means that they have an emotional wave that goes up and down, and they should not be making decisions in the high of the wave or the low of the wave because they're going to regret them, or they're going to feel embarrassed if they commit to something and it really wasn't for
yeah
them. So that emotional wave is always present. And so
mm-hmm.
um, people who have that center, that down there on the right, the emotional solar plexus, they have it white. It means that they're open and taking in all the waves of all the other people, and they're like, yuck. And they think it's them,
yeah
like, I don't like this conflict. And so they might just um, avoid what feels like conflict because it just feels so intense to have that energy, because
yeah
when you think that it's yours.
right
However, if you realize if you have that in white, that emotional solar plexus, and you realize, oh, this isn't mine to carry, um, I can like kind of put up a mirror to the person. They can see themselves, they can see their own emotional experience, but it doesn't have to be mine. Like, oh my gosh, it's so freeing. So Ra jokes that half of the world is completely absorbed in this intense emotional experience because they're living it in the wave. And then the other half is completely absorbed in it because they're thinking that it's theirs. And so really that emotional solar plexus is a great place for profound awareness about what's yours and what's not, what's the coat of conditioning. Like, I feel like I have to fix this and what's not.
The coat of conditioning. Can we first of all, I love that analogy. Can we get into that a little bit?
Yeah.
What, just did you come up with that, or
the coat of conditioning?
Just,
yeah.
No.
I mean, it feels like an icky, scratchy coat,
freeing.
Right? You're like, I have to wear this, and you're hot, and you're like,
yes,
I want to take this off. Can I take this off? I don't like how this feels, but I'm supposed to wear it. This is the coat my parents put on me.
Literally.
This is what my faith tradition told me. This is what the school taught me. This is what the world says. To be a successful entrepreneur, you have to do these things. To be a good person, you have to act this way. And, we don't question it because it's just out there. It's kind of putting pressure on us. And maybe we don't have a system that allows us to work through it. And, I love systems. Like, I was totally into Myers-Briggs and other things. Like, I like the classifications, not because it's keeping you hampered or limited, but because it's a starting point to kind of see, oh, that makes sense. And then you get to work through how it makes sense for you.
Right. Like, when you first said it to me, I was like, wow, that's great. And I thought about it, and I literally envisioned my little younger self, and they're like, you gotta put a coat on before you go outside. It's like, why can't I just be, And it really is just so brilliant. And you don't even think about you're like, I'm just the way I am because, this is how I am, but it really is. It's parents, faith, different things that have just happened to you throughout school or just friendships. And I was like, that is such a great way to put it. And the greatest part of all of that is you can take the coat off.
Right. Yeah.
But it's going to take some work, but you can take it off. You can get there.
And the work is to recognize that it's not you. And to strengthen that you can trust what is you. So
right.
And then that comes together.
Great.
So that's sort of what I do in coaching. I'm like raising up and strengthening the part that is who you really are, and then helping acknowledge what isn't. And then you get to let it go, release.
Right.
And then you're left with this ease in life. And then you can be open to receiving those beautiful manifestations that are meant for you. Because sometimes the thing that you thought you wanted, then the thing that you get is so much better. You're like, I couldn't even imagine that I would get to do that. Like, oh my gosh. And so it's the way, is that alignment. And it, like you said, human design is just one aspect. I love to use it as a jumping off point and then really move into the coaching and bring in other skills that I've developed over many years. But it's remarkable what it can do.
Now, when someone works with you as a coach, what is what's the I want to say the experience, but obviously everyone's going to have a different experience, but what are you providing?
Yes, right.
That sounded harsh, but you know what I'm saying.
Right. So, what makes me different from, say, maybe some other human design coaches is that I'm very strongly intuitive. I'm very good at seeing patterns. So the people who are good to work with me are ones who have these patterns and they're just at the end of the rope with them. They need to have a different pathway to move forward, but they're not exactly sure what that's going to take. And so I'm using this human design kind of as a starting point, but my intuition brings me to certain places in there, or I'll like all of a sudden have an idea, like, let me tell this example. And then the person's like, what caused you to say that? And I'm like, I don't know, because that's exactly what I, blah, blah, blah. It happens all the time. So there's an intuitive aspect to it. There's also that, a kind of an organizing aspect. I spent many years as a professional organizer helping people in their homes. So there's nothing I'm afraid to see. People would reveal their parts of themselves that were just very mired in shame about, I'm not living up to the way I should be. And I'd be like, okay, well,
Right.
let's figure out what works for you and what works for you in this house and what works for you in your
Right.
life, because it's busy and all of that stuff. So I'm bringing a lot of different things to the experience. So what we do in Epiphany is we look at that imprint, the strengths. Who are you according to the design? And does that fit? Does that resonate? And then we look at the conditioning that's there in the design. And then we look at the life purpose. So what does this mean for why I'm here? And so it's
Right.
those 3 steps. And then often the people who have gone through that container, they're like, okay, great. I know this. I feel different. But how do I interact with the other people in my life now? And so then we do a second container where we're like looking at their husband's human design, or their children's, or whatever, and so that they can understand how those things fit together, or even like an integration of different parts of themselves over time. Like, what does their next chapter look like, and how are they bringing this new awareness for who they are into this new thing.
Are there like specific like types that like make stronger partnerships, or is it kind of like it can be anything?
Partnerships in what respect?
I would say like relationship,
Okay.
like more like romantic relationships.
That's a good question, and I have come across some information on that, but here's what I would caution. I would caution anyone from using human design as a predictor for what can and cannot work, because we have free choice,
Interesting. Yeah.
and there are limitless quantum potentials for what can be.
Right.
So when you start with yourself and getting really clear about what it is that motivates you and drives you, and a sense of who you are and what it is you'll put up with or not, you're going to attract or shift the relationship or not with a person who's going to meet you at that level of new awareness of yourself. Meanwhile, if you're
Interesting.
stuck in the patterns of the old stuff, you're just going
Yeah.
to attract more of the same of that. That's a problem. You break up with
Right.
someone or get divorced, and you bring yourself to the new relationship. If you haven't done that work, it's not going to create a
Yeah.
different result. But it's possible in a relationship, when you change yourself, that the other person can become curious, and you can, the thing that you thought was them causing the issue for you is actually the confusion that was created out of not living as yourself. And then when that confusion clears, it's like there's a new experience. Does that make sense?
That's so interesting. Yeah. And I'm sure that could be said too for like business partnerships
Yes, for sure.
as
Mhm.
well. It's very
Yeah,
similar. Yeah.
right.
Now, when someone is trying to acknowledge and exist in the current moment, which like part of their like design chart should they is it going to be like multiple parts, or is there going to be like a significant one that is leading them more than the others?
Right. So everything is through the lens of type. And so I've got, I know that people discover human design, they can get overwhelmed, they can want to go down rabbit holes. They want to know about themselves. But what I would say is that type is the lens. So it's important to get that connection both for your unique self and for the overview. And I did a little bit of that today, but I also have a free guide for that, so that people can get that overview and then know what the next step is for them. So I would encourage people to get that. I don't know if I can put that link or
We'll link
whatever.
that below.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
So looking through type, but there's always an ongoing issue that is for somebody. So someone might feel like paralyzed by anxiety, for example. And so we might then look at, okay, which centers are open here where what are you absorbing? And what are you saying that means about you? And so that's where the coaching aspect comes in is, okay, well, how does that show up? And is that true? And whose is it? And, that's a process of uncovering. But for people who are just taking this knowledge and wanting to apply it right now, think about each moment as a face off. Like, does this feel good to me? Does this feel like frustrating? Am I feeling bitter? Am I feeling angry? Am I feeling disappointed? Like, just noticing where you feel right now. And I would encourage you to do that in your body. Yeah.
It goes back to the pause.
Yeah, back to the pause.
Like,
and
take the pause.
So can I give you do we have time for another example here? What, a minute? Okay. 10 minutes. Okay, great. So I just want to tell you about someone I'm going to call Lindsay. She has a creative arts studio that she shares with someone else. And she came to me with a problem like, I have this business. I need to schedule classes. I love doing this work, but I'm procrastinating. I'm not doing it. I'm not setting up my schedule. So I'm like, okay, great. We looked at her design, and she's a generator with a sacral authority. So the sacral is the way that generator types, including manifesting generators, can tune into how they should respond. And they're going to, if you ask them yes or no questions and they're answering with their body, it's going to be uh-huh or uh-uh. And so it's going to give them that information. If they're answering with yes or no, it's going to be more of a mind-based answer, which might mean more rationalizations or I should or that kind of thing. But the body doesn't lie. So I said to her, would you like to do some yes or no questions? Or this is what's called a sacral session. And so she did. And she was a true sacral authority. If you've got emotional authority, things are a little bit different. But she had a true sacral authority, which is listed on that type, listed on the sheet when you get your human design chart. And so I asked her some questions about, things. And then I said, do you know why you're not scheduling these classes? And her body said, uh-huh. And so then I stopped and I said, okay, well, tell me more about that. And so then she told me about how this person who she co-rents the space with is just like, ugh. She's like, makes her so uncomfortable. And they had some run-ins and she doesn't know when that person was going to be there or not. And I was like, okay, well, let's go back to asking the yes or no questions. And then so I asked a little bit, and then I said, would you like for this person to just disappear and get out of your life? And she goes, uh-huh. And then all of a sudden she had this shock look on her face because her body was telling her the truth that her mind didn't want to acknowledge. And here she was thinking, amazing. I need to apply more willpower. I need to just make some choices. And in that moment, she saw the disconnect between, she had that open solar plexus. So she wanted to avoid confrontation and it just felt too intense for her. And so she knew in that moment that the real problem was in this uncertainty of interaction with this other person and the desire to avoid that interaction. And so knowing the problem, the real problem, gave her information on how she could then strategize about that, how she could make it how she could resolve it in a way that could feel good for her. So then that was the rest of our coaching was, okay, how can this do it? How can you feel okay with it? And so she came up with some strategies for that. But she was so shocked that she would say something that conditioning would say,
Like
that's
that.
unkind. You shouldn't think about that, even though she
Oh,
was wanting to protect herself from this
self,
situation.
yes.
And then she got sad. She was like, oh, you mean all of this and I haven't been able to be creative? And because of this thing with this
Wow.
person, like, that's not who I am. I don't want to live that way. I don't want to give my power away to someone else. Right.
Right.
So when your body
Wow.
reveals what is really going on, then the gates open to resolution that doesn't involve trying to think your way into it, trying to willpower yourself into it.
Right.
The process may involve like uncomfortableness, but at
Right.
least you're on your own team. You're not undermining yourself. You're
Oh,
not
that's
using a
so
bunch of
good.
energy
Yeah.
to try to be something you're not. So that's the beauty of human design, is you get to discover how to make decisions as yourself. And that's what she discovered in that session. And that was just a one-off session. I mean,
That's
there's
amazing.
a lot of good stuff that can come from this.
Yeah. Well, this has been so fantastic. And as we come to a close, what would you like to share what you're currently working on, or what would you like to promote?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for that opportunity. I would just, if you are listening to this and you're feeling like, oh, I really want to just talk to Kate and explore things,
Yeah.
I'm happy to have a conversation with you. Reach out to Kate Varness, kate@katevarness.com, and let's pick up a time to talk. If you are not having the magnetic draw, find out more information with the free guide that I have. But most of all, listen to what your body is telling you. Are you moving forward? Are you feeling drawn? What are you feeling drawn to? And let that be your guide more than what your mind is trying to rationalize.
Oh, thank you so much. Everything will be linked below, every social, all of that for everyone. Again, thank you so much. It's been so eye-opening for me. Like, learning about this has just been such a gift, and getting to know you, it's been so pleasant. I hope that our audience enjoyed this, because I had the best time ever today.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Until next time, stay blessed, babes.
Thanks for tuning into the Messy Medium podcast. If you like today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and follow wherever you're listening from. You can find me, the Messy Medium, on all social media platforms under the handle Tara Cecilia. If you'd like to book an intuitive reading, consult session, or explore my coaching containers, please find the direct link to those services and more in the show notes. Until next time, stay blessed, babes.